I would like to thank the Comisión de Derechos Humanos de la Ciudad de Mexico for inviting me to speak at the launch of their important report on Protesta, feminista, contra, violencia, economica. Let me first congratulate the Commission on producing this important report, which is a clear reminder of the key role that women's movements have played and continue to play in advancing changes for an equal and inclusive society in Mexico, and demonstrates the numerous obstacles they face in realizing these objectives. The right to freedom of peaceful assembly is a fundamental right which enables us to demand changes and defend our human rights, including fighting inequalities and injustice. In many cases, this right provides the only avenue through which underrepresented and marginalized groups and individuals, including women, LGBTI+, children, indigenous people, and individuals and groups living in poverty and fragile contexts can express their grievance or raise suggestions to address underlying issues such as discrimination and injustice. Through the right to freedom of peaceful assembly, these groups can also exercise their right to participation in public life and contribute to policy and legal change affecting them and their community. In my 2020 report celebrating women activism, I highlighted the important role of women-led movements in achieving positive changes. Women in Mexico, as in many parts of the world, are at the front of today's most pressing global struggle. They are speaking up against economic inequality, demanding political freedom, fair work, and climate justice, and are tackling the greatest impediment to achieving the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The exercise of the right to peaceful assembly and of association is central to these women-led movements and initiatives and must be respected, facilitated, and protected so that women in Mexico can continue their invaluable work. It is evident that the feminist movement in Mexico has been of tremendous importance in advancing rights and transforming social, political, and economic structure over the years. During my visits to Mexico last year, I attended the Women March where I saw thousands of women unite in the street calling for an end to the extremely concerning trends of femicide. It shows how women movements are active in mobilizing, demanding change, and bringing transformation. Women-led activism also led to the legal change such as the adoption of the General Law on Disappearance, the adoption of the General Law on Eradication of Violence Against Women, as well as to the decision by the Supreme Court to decriminalize abortion. These are just examples of many achievements and the importance of the Mexican feminist movement, for which I congratulate them. These positive changes bring important protection of human rights in the society as a whole. In order to support such movement, I made a few recommendations in my 2020 report celebrating women activism that I would like to re-emphasize here. States should repeal laws that continue to discriminate women in public life and adopt effective policy to combat harmful gender stereotypes and accelerate effort to end gender-based violence which prevent women to enjoy their right to freedom of peaceful assembly and association. States should support women-led change by publicly realizing and highlighting the crucial role that women organizations and movements play in the advancement of democracy, peace, and development. States should also address the intersection form of discrimination against women exercising their right to peaceful assembly and association, addressing the social, economic, and political factor that prevents particular groups of women from participating in public life. Finally, I welcome that Mexico has ratified the ILO Convention on Domestic Workers and the Violence and Harassment Convention, which is due to enter into the force on 6 July 2023. Further, Mexico should take steps to ensure its effective implementation so that women can benefit from social protection and the right to freedom of association and peaceful assembly. Despite their vital importance, women movements continue to face harassment, stigmatization, and violence to their right to freedom of peaceful assembly and association, both online and offline. We continue to receive reports that women are disproportionately affected by law enforcement improper management of assembly, including in Mexico. I welcome encouraging efforts by the Mexican authority to strengthen their capacity to facilitate demonstration, which includes setting up specialized units of law enforcement, such as units exclusively composed of women. This constitutes an important step in addressing gender-based violence in the context of protest. Unfortunately, it seems such practices are not equally implemented throughout the country. To tackle the continual human rights violation, including killing in the context of demonstration, the Mexican authorities should take further step in ensuring law, policies, and protocols reflective of gender perspective are in place and implemented to ensure the facilitation of their right to peaceful assembly. I would also like to reiterate the importance of ensuring access to justice and accountability for violations related to the exercise of the right to freedom of peaceful assembly. The impunity for violations committed against activists is prevailing, and this creates an extremely chilling effect for those seeking to exercise these rights, in addition to creating a conducive environment for such violation to continue. Due to the systemic discrimination faced by women, such as in Mexico, they often face additional barrier to access to justice, which must be addressed. Lastly, with Mexico's upcoming general election in 2024, when individual and community will seek to express their view through exercising the right to freedom of assembly and association, Mexican authorities should put measures in place to prevent human rights violations related to the exercise of these freedoms and to guarantee the right to participation for all without discrimination before, during, and after the electoral process. I invite them in particular to do so in cooperation with civil society and women movements to ensure that their concerns are taken into consideration and to use a human rights-based and gender equality approach when doing so. I thank you again for inviting me to be present today, and I wish you a successful launch of the report and a fruitful further deliberation. Thank you very much, and gracias.